So before we get started on this build, I wanted to kind of go over why I wanted to make a new tool rest for my lathe. As you can see, with the one I have right now, I have very little travel, kind of stuck doing half a rolling pin at a time or half anything long at a time. And right there you saw I got a catch. That's because I fell off the end of my tool rest, kind of ruined that piece. I had to make it a lot smaller than I originally planned, and it was just annoying. So here I'm just laying out my idea for this tool rest. They're called Chairmaker's tool rest because they're long, and Chairmakers needed a really long tool rest to get a lot of work done and kind of working the entire piece at once. Then you can see right here, just run things through the planer to get the one side flat. Just get some of the old varnish off of these pieces of table I had lying around. Now I'm running them through the joiner, just clean them up a little bit more just to get them ready for the initial glue up, and then process all over again later on in the video. So here I got to glue these two pieces together, and as you can see there's a gap right there. You could just run them across the joiner and not worry about it if you got a nice square fence. Pretty sure my fence is nice and square, but a nice little trick is to run them over together and then fold them together. Any discrepancies in your joiner or anything will be made up on the other piece as it mirrors itself. As you can see right there, it's a nice clean line. It means you'll have a nice glue line, which will be nice and strong. What you saw me doing there with the pencil was just drawing a pattern so I didn't get my edges confused or anything mixed up. Now it's one little piece, but it's a good practice to get into. So here I'm just using some Titebond to glue it all together. You want a nice even coat of glue that spreads evenly across everything, and when you clamp it together you want to get a nice bead of glue squeeze out all the way across. Makes me feel like I know there's enough glue there. Rather waste a little bit of glue than have a piece be starved for glue in the joint. So right here, just tightening the clamps just enough to snug it up and seat the glue. Because if you tighten up one side down all the way, it likes to slip and slide all over the place. Now once again, going through that joining process again, just to clean everything up. We're going to get a nice clean face, and then I'll get a nice clean edge. And then we'll go back to the planer and make it all square and nice and pretty. Get all that old finish off from when it was a table. So some things I did off screen here was figure out the exact height I needed the tool rest. This is just a basic piece of angle iron you got from Home Depot. So right here, I'm just leveling off the top because, as you can see, it's pretty rough looking, and your tool will not glide as smoothly across the metal, and it'll have bumps, and it'll just make it more difficult to do your turning. So I'm using some files and some sandpaper just to get that to be a nice, level, smooth transition all the way across, so that as I'm working, it just glides over the tool rest. Now I'm just going to clean it up a little bit here with the wire wheel just to get off some of the scale and rust. Not too concerned, this is more of a utilitarian piece than a pretty piece, so I just wanted to get it started. Now I'm just using the awl to just get some starting holes for when I put this on the drill press and drill out the holes for the screws. I like this bit. I have no idea what it's called, but it does a nice job of drilling the hole out and giving it a recess for the screw to go in so it doesn't sit above the surface too much. So this is kind of what it's all going to look like when it sits on top. As you saw before, I cut it to the right height, so it sits just about center with the turning, maybe a little bit higher. So now I'm laying out for my holes that will go down through the lathe bed and anchor all this down. So to start with, I just took a Forstner bit that was just about the size of the bolts I'm going to be using and drilled a series of holes just to clear out some of the debris, and then I come back with some rasps here in a minute and clean it all up. So here I'm taking those rasps and just cleaning out these holes a bit. In the end, I did change my design. I did end up just cutting those notches out completely, and I'll show you that at the end of the video, just what it looks like and why I did that. Here I just like to use my hand planes when I get an opportunity to, and this is just a nice simple way of easing over the edges, getting rid of any sharp corners. So I'm getting down to the final assembly of the rest and just marking my holes, and then I'll come back with the awl and put a little center divot in there so that the drill bit has a spot to align with. These screws were a little tight in there and I didn't want to snap them off with the drill, so I was taking some beeswax and mineral oil mixture and just putting them on the threads, which allowed the screws to go in nice and smooth and lubricate everything. It's amazing the difference that makes. So here I'm measuring for the blocks that are going to go between that gap in the lathe bed. And the reason for that is it allows those bolts to stay centered and the washers I use later to not move around, and just allows everything to slide and be nice and secure and snug, and makes for working a lot easier. I love this little chop saw. I have a bigger one, but this one is so light, it's just you grab it and throw it wherever you want. Here I'm just marking center on those pieces so that they fit in the lathe correctly. Then I'll just drill them out and then the bolt will fit right down to those. Always a good idea to use some sort of clamp to hold small pieces. I am a huge fan of CA adhesive. It dries quick when you put the activator on it, and I use it for a lot of my finishes on my turnings, and it just is a wonderful thing to have in the shop. Allows for some really quick fixes. So as you can see right here, I still have just the slots cut in, and they worked all right, but really what ended up working best is cutting out those slots all the way to the end of the board. Then instead of having to assemble everything each time, I could leave those pieces in the lathe bed and then just pull up on the knob and slide the tool rest into the slot, or slide the bolt into the slot in the tool rest, which just made putting it on and taking it off a lot quicker and a lot more convenient. Thanks for watching my video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found something interesting and learned a little bit. I really enjoyed making this tool rest. It's not the craziest thing in the world, but it's super functional for the uses I need it for, which when turning rolling pins, I'm going to be starting working on a Windsor stool build here soon. It's going to come in very handy with just doing those longer pieces. Here's the notch I was talking about that I just cut out. Really just made it much easier to put the tool rest on and off the lathe. And I really hope you enjoyed the video, and tune in the next couple of days. I'm going to have another video up where I'm actually using this to make a rolling pin. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Take care.